everybody, welcome to Tpull's Corner. And we've got an issue here. I'm not sure how to fix it, but we're testing some things. NVIDIA had a software update and everything stopped working, so I kind of had to go back to my blue snowball as an experiment because everything else, it crashes and doesn't record, or it records and doesn't stop. And I'm trying to figure out how much is related to using my headset, because things will go better when I go back to the snowball, which may mean that the audio quality gets reduced for the duration. Alright, Sea Shark goes away because of the Sewer King. So if they have spells that recover things from the graveyard, we might be okay for a turn or two. Restless Cottage is good. Do I bring this Scrap Gorger out now, or just... I think I hold my ammo with Terra Sunder. While they're attacking. Okay. How about another Hopeless Nightmare? We do it before combat because it's at combat that we get the rat, and as soon as we get the rat we get to exile something in the graveyard. So we make them discard first, and then whatever's in there, they lose. And they don't have a blue mana source, so that may be part of what's keeping them from doing things. See if they have a way to protect that or not. They do not. Which means we can do stuff like this now. We'll just pass the turn. And they've had enough already. But that may be because they have a bunch of blue spells and 5 plains and no islands. So, as much as I'd like to claim superior skill, it's possible that had nothing to do with me whatsoever. Alright, everybody new! Hit the subscribe button quick before you forget. This is called Nightmare Loops. The nightmare is hopefully for the opponent, not for me. Alright, the star of the show is going to be Braid's Arisen Nightmare, hence Nightmare Loops. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice an artifact, creature, enchantment, land, or planeswalker. This was before battles, so otherwise, I mean, if they had battles on Atraxa, maybe they should have had battles on Braids. But anyway, if you do sacrifice something, the opponent has the choice. They can sacrifice a permanent that shares a card type. So you sacrifice an enchantment, they get to sacrifice an enchantment. If they don't, they lose 2 life and you draw a card. So we're having fun with the fact that we have new cards like Hopeless Nightmare from Eldraine. It's an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, the opponent discards a card and loses 2 life. Then when it's put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you get to scry 2. Instead of paying the 3 mana to sacrifice it, we'll just sacrifice it when Braids is out. And that'll give us another trigger. And if they don't have an enchantment to sacrifice for the opponent, they'll lose 2 life and we'll draw a card. In the meantime, we'll still get to scry 2. Or maybe they'll have an enchantment and they'll choose to to sacrifice it, but saves us from having to worry about paying 3 to sacrifice the Hopeless Nightmare. We've got 1 Urborg Repossession for when they kill the Braids, and we've got a Kicker. If we pay the Kicker, then we can get another target permanent card from our graveyard as well, as opposed to just 1 creature, but it gains us 2 life, so we got a little bit of life gain in the deck. Gixian Infiltrator, since we're talking about sacrificing things a lot, whenever we sacrifice another permanent, you get a +1 counter on the Infiltrator. 4 Armored Scrap Gorgers, this gives us extra mana, and whenever it becomes tapped, you exile a target card from a graveyard. Once it has 3 oil counters from doing that, it gets a +3 to its power. The standard, whenever I use the black and green colors, 4 copies of Terra Sunder, we pay the Kicker and we can exile any target non-land permanent. But I love the utility because you can just pay 2 and get rid of an artifact or enchantment. 1 copy of Stone Brain just to exile something from the opponent's graveyard, hand, and library. So that's a lot of fun. Graveyard Trespasser, again, and this is partially because Ixalan has come out, and it's a very much a Graveyard Matters kind of deck. So this is another way that we can exile a card from a graveyard. Lord Scaler the Sewer King uses it all. We get to get a rat at the beginning just before combat, and then once we have a rat enter the battlefield, we get to exile a target card from an opponent's graveyard. For crowd control, we have Choking Miasma. All creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn. It would kill our rats, but we would usually use it against other swarms. 2 copies of Titania, Voice of Gaia. Whenever 1 or more lands are put into your graveyard, you gain 2 life. And that's kind of fun. And if we get the Argoth land out, we can meld it. We have Urg, Spawn of Turg. Power is equal to the number of lands in your graveyard. You get to surveil at the beginning of your upkeep, and anytime you want to sacrifice land, you gain 2 life. So we can sacrifice land when we were ready with Argoth and get 4 lands in our graveyard easy enough to meld Titania if we use Urg. In the meantime, 1 copy of Sword once in future. If we can equip it, equipped creature gets protection from blue and black. And then when we do damage to a player, we get to surveil 2. And then cast an instant or sorcery spell with mana value 2 or less from the graveyard without paying the mana cost. So we could do another Terra Sunder, perhaps, or maybe another Urborg Repossession if we've already used that, or maybe a Dread Fugue that I skipped over at the very beginning. Discard. We have Splendid Reclamation, so once we get Titanium melded, we could actually, whenever Titanium melds, you get to return all your land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. But regardless, we might end up with another situation where we have more lands in the graveyard later, especially if we keep sacrificing them with Urg. So we have 1 card, Splendid Reclamation, that returns all of them from the graveyard to the battlefield tapped. And Conduit of Worlds, which also allows us to play lands from our graveyard. And Perennial Behemoth, 3 copies, which allows us to play lands from our graveyard. And the point of all of that, having, like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different ways to get lands out of the graveyard, is we could just sacrifice the lands, because lands aren't impermanent, and normally in a lot of the other Magic cards it says non-land permanent. It does not say non-land permanent here. You can sacrifice artifact, creature, enchantment, specifically land or planeswalker. So we can sacrifice as much lands as we want and not be afraid about being able to get them back, which might cripple our opponent if they're having any land problems. Finally, we have 1 battle, Invasion of Lorwyn. When it enters battlefield, destroy target non-elf creature an opponent controls with X or less, where X is the number of lands you control. And if we can get it into Winterwing forces, their power and toughness are equal to the number of lands you control. We've got a bunch of special lands. We've got 2 copies of Argoth, a couple of Besiegers, Hunter's Mage for card draw, Restless Cottage from Eldraine to turn into a 4/4 black and horror creature, 3 Fields of Ruin, 1 Mishra's Foundry, and 2 Plows of Heroes to try and protect Braids, perhaps. And Riveteer's Outlook, which we can sacrifice and throw into the graveyard and gain a life. We also have 1 Roadside Reliquary. If we have artifacts and enchantments out, we can sacrifice to draw a card. That's the idea. We don't have too much in the way of creature loops, because we only have the 1 instant that can go back and get creatures out of the graveyard. But destroying the land and being able to bring it back in a continuous loop could prove to be a nightmare for the opponent. So that's why I called it Nightmare Loops. That's the idea. is this deck going to be? Let's see what else we got going on. Land, land, and a Clodolphic Cackler. Okay. And maybe some poison in here? Yeah, look, there's some poison. It's first strike. Let's just pick out the scrap here. If they don't have a way to pump things up, we can block the toxic first striker. Unless they just drew the remote. Okay, never mind. That gets +2. That's gonna hurt. Block that out. Alright. What are we gonna do here? The Scrap Dorager doesn't care. If there's a card available in a graveyard, it's going to take it. We're really making them think, aren't we? Or Stonebrain. We will block the 4/4. Okay, Hopeless Nightmare. No, that's fine, we'll take that. The Necropolis comes down, Hopeless Nightmare comes down. We make them discard their only card. And we bring down Sword of Once in Future. And that's pretty much all that we can do for the most part. They've already gone through their hand, but they've got a nice little board presence. And they go digging for further advantage. There's no penalty if they want to attack with everybody. We block the 3 damage and the 2 damage. But we're still taking 3 and they're gaining 3. And that's what we call unsustainable in the long term. Do I just throw that into the graveyard? I think I just throw that into the graveyard right away. That pumps up Urg. We play this land. Then we pass the turn. Why? Because we have a Restless Cottage, and we want to see if they're ready for it. Okay, the sword goes away, which makes me kind of glad I didn't spend any time to equip it. And our opponent's got good cards to deal with enchantments, to deal with artifacts. Okay, and I hope the card that they have doesn't stop this puppy. And what do we want to stop? I think we want to kill this thing. We can block this, and we can block this. They didn't attack with the 1/1. One creature goes bye-bye at least. And they're going to deal 1 damage to us anyway and try and whittle us away. We're going to get rid of red creatures. And we will take the Infiltrator. That's all we're going to do. We're still kind of stuck on defense. We don't want any more poison counters. Especially with that out now. And they don't really have much of a way to get more oil counters right this second, do they? What? What is going on there? And just like that, we get a 3/3. And now it's doing a little better. Choking me as my everybody gets -2. That would mean all of theirs get -2. I'd have to give up my Infiltrator. I want to do that. Do I want to do that? I think I want to do that. Because I can kick it and put a +1 counter. Oh, hang on a second. Let's do it this way first. Okay, so we sacrifice you. Trigger. Infiltrator gets +1 counter. And then I'll kick this next turn. Ooh, braids. I like everything there. Pass the turn. They're getting just about as much land as we are. But time is on our side now. Okay, surveilling is fine. We like what we got. We can kick stuff. Dispel. We get a +1 counter on the Infiltrator. They lose everything. We get to attack with all of our stuff. And we're very happy now. The worm is turned, and turning reservoir needs something else to work. And we have cleared the field. And we can get rid of that whenever we want. Let's see, I think we bring down you, and we bring down you. Maybe go and swing in with everybody. And it's time to start sacrificing lands. Our opponent should be willing to sacrifice land. They got enough of it. but we're going to get stronger just because of Infiltrator. Scrap Gorger, we don't need Scrap Gorger. Besiege was kind of fun. Get the red, exile a card. Swing in with everybody. And they're not going to hang around for the lethal. And that's how it works. You go first. I think I need a forest. Okay, Arena's having fun. Remember I've got the sword that protects against blue and black. So we've played against red and white, and now we're playing against green and white. And oh, what a coincidence! There's no blue and there's no black to be found. It's because I put that one card in my deck. Some people would love to just say that's confirmation bias, but the issue is we've got the recordings of the last time I used that sword, and the same thing happened. And we can measure that because we keep doing it. Because I do like those swords. I like the protection they give my creatures. I tend to use them. And I tend to pay attention to what colors I go up against. And before too long, you start to spot a pattern. It doesn't mean we'll never, ever come up against black and blue. Eventually, the algorithm will relent. Especially if we start winning too much and it thinks that it's found a match for us that can beat us. Even despite one or both of those colors. But when we're starting out, I'm not used to facing opponents that take that long to think when it's red. But I need to put a counter on that, so we're going to do that first. And then we're going to bring down braids. And I'm not going to sacrifice anything this turn. They had to use their green source for that, so they couldn't pump it up, so they couldn't bother attacking. I think it's time for Urg. Spawn of Turg! And we can go ahead and swing in for a quick 3 with braids. If they have a battle tactic, like they have a spell that could give something +2, I want to see it now just because I have a backup braids ready. They might be willing to jump block. No, they're not. They're taking the damage. And again, no real reason to sacrifice anything yet. especially when they're outpacing us on land. And they could easily have removal to take out Braids, which is fine because we have the backup. But Urg is a little bit tougher. You would think I was facing a blue player. They're spending so much time thinking. That's a disgusting card. I really need one more land now. It just goes to show you, no matter what kind of deck you have, if you're going to miss land drops, you're going to be in trouble. That is not a land. That is also not a land. Ah, lovely. So we're attacking again. I really need to be able to kick Terra Sunder, and actually getting all of that is not helpful. Okay, we are going to sacrifice a creature. If they keep their creatures, then we at least get a chance to draw a land and get rid of Lana and Elena. We wait to let them think about it. It wouldn't be the biggest deal to sacrifice their 1/1. They just concentrate. Oh, no, they still want to keep it. Alright. All my problems would have been solved with just one untapped land. We got extra card draw and still getting land star for no good reason. Are they gonna... Nope, they're gonna spread it out evenly. Okay. Kind of makes sense, yes. We're gonna take the damage. They can pump this up for +2 anyway, so Urg would be dead. They might have a combat spell. Speak of the devil. I just can't do anything. I'm left praying for land again. And look at this. All this card draw. Finally. I got so distracted I cast the wrong green spell. That's a sign it's getting too late in the evening and I'm getting exhausted. We'll make this our last battle. Just because that may have cost me the match already. Alright, Helena and Elena goes away. What can we do with this? We still need one more land to power that. We could get rid of the Piper. But the Piper will, with all of our luck, bring down Avabrook Caretaker and make things infinitely worse for us. Not as bad. Still pretty bad. Alright, 6 lands. That is 7 power. We could bring that for a second and play. No, we can't. We already played a land. What are we gonna do? Alright. We don't need to worry about doing that. We can bring braids in. And that's going to automatically make us want to get rid of something. Okay, fine. And you were unintentionally tapped. Why did it not use the forest? I don't understand that. Alright, since that's tapped, we'll sacrifice some braids. And they're going to have another removal card, aren't they? They had Wolf Strike and Moonrager Slash already. Even putting down 2 creatures in a turn, I can't keep up with the werewolf synergy that they have going. I've never seen a werewolf deck, especially one that has this much of an advantage. Damage to themselves than I've done to them. Right? Did they forget to attack? Is that why they said oops? Let's throw that away, I guess. That makes Urg better. Let's see. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The Howler is 8 right now, so that doesn't help. Do I have to pass? They got just what they need. Again, they're going just big enough. I'm going to tell them what I'm thinking for a change. I already played the land though. We want to do that first. So we're going to sacrifice the behemoth. And again, they take the damage, and why not? And we're kind of stuck, aren't we? We can use Mishra's Foundry as a chump blocker, and they don't have anybody with trample just yet. The problem is, they have the Eviscerator and they can pump everybody up. So we're pretty much still hopelessly dead. That just gives them power, so... I don't think there's any combination that keeps us alive here. We have to just sacrifice everybody no matter what. So that stops the 10, that stops the 9, that gets rid of a 6, and let's see, that no matter where we go, that's still lethal damage. Alright, I don't know if we had a hope there, but that was partly my fault to the misclick. I wasn't supposed to play a creature, I was supposed to get rid of Falana and Elena a whole turn earlier. But the Werewolf Synergy decks, it's still a pretty good deck, right? It still can work pretty fast with cheap creatures that complement each other very well. And those creatures did work just the way they needed to outscale us and finish us off quickly. It's very strange, though, to see a deck that operates that smoothly and cheaply and with such easy synergies and have them take so long to make a decision every time. But I'm going to leave it there just because I'm exhausted. It's been a long day. I lost a lot of time due to the software updates and trying to get the recording going properly and having to revert back to the snowball. And I think that actually fixed it. I'm not sure why the headset makes a difference after the software driver update. But I'll keep troubleshooting that and try and get us back to the headset, just because from your feedback, I gather that's better audio quality. But this is kind of a fun deck. It does rely a lot on braids, I think, in having a certain advantage in the lands or a creature to start the sacrifice chain off. We didn't get any Hopeless Nightmares in there. That can sometimes be helpful. But I like the way that I've got this set up. When we get the Infiltrator, we get a nice sacrificial chain going that boosts that up. We don't really have to worry about graveyard recursion with all the different ways we have to exile things from their graveyard. The things that we have for sacrificial fodder, like Hopeless Nightmare, only cost 1. Or the Armored Scrap Gorgers are easy creatures to sacrifice that only cost 2. Or if we get the Sewer King out that creates a rat every time, we can just start sacrificing rats. And if they have too many 1/1s that are going to start swarming us, we've got Choking Miasma that we can call upon. I guess the one thing that I didn't include in here that I might is I generally tend to have 1 or 2 board wipes, and I didn't bother to do that this time around. And you can see that, as usual, because I'm trying to work on some sort of combination type thing, I only have the 4 Terra Sunders. I don't know if you really want to count Stonebrain as removal. And then we have the 1 Invasion of Lorwyn, which still only gets rid of 1 particular non-elf creature. The Choking Miasma is sort of another removal spell, but again, that works only on the very small ones. So I'm really light on the removal. You could make an argument that maybe Stonebrain should just come out and I should just make a regular removal card out of it, that kind of thing. Yeah, as usual, I'm trying to show a particular kind of synergy that works quite nicely when we get the pieces out. And to do that, I tend to skip on the destruction like usual. And sometimes it bites me in the butt. But we'll leave it there. Remember to like and subscribe. Leave me a comment if you like the deck, if you hate the deck. Like Mark Rosewater says, we want you to have strong feelings either way. We don't want you to be bored. We don't want you to look at the deck and go, we don't really care. We want you to either like it or decide that it's disgusting and give me some feedback on what I should do to fix that. All right, with that, have a good one, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.